The story of Adam and Eve is one of the most enduring and influential myths in human history. It originates in the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, and has shaped religious thought, literature, and art for thousands of years. At its core, this story seeks to explain the origins of humanity, the nature of temptation, and the consequences of disobedience. The tale begins in the Garden of Eden, a paradise created by God, a place of abundant beauty and harmony, where every tree bore fruit and life flourished in perfect balance. Adam, the first human, was formed from the dust of the ground, and God breathed life into him, giving him a living soul. Adam was placed in Eden to tend the garden, naming the animals and caring for all that God had made. In this idyllic setting, Adam experienced a world free from suffering, pain, and death. Yet God saw that Adam was alone, and that it was not good for him to be solitary. To provide companionship, God created Eve from one of Adam's ribs, forming her as a partner who would share in his life and stewardship over the earth. Adam and Eve lived together in harmony, free to enjoy all the garden's blessings, with only one restriction. They were forbidden to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God warned them that disobedience would bring death, a consequence of choosing knowledge over trust. The garden itself symbolized innocence, purity, and the state of humanity before moral awareness, a concept theologians later called original innocence. The narrative takes a pivotal turn with the introduction of the serpent, a creature of cunning and subtlety. The serpent approached Eve and questioned God's command, asking, "Did God really say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden?" This moment is significant because it introduces doubt and the concept of temptation, inviting Eve to consider the possibility that God's restrictions might be limiting. The serpent promised that eating the forbidden fruit would not bring death, but would instead open their eyes, granting knowledge and making them like God. Eve, confronted with the idea of wisdom and the allure of independence, chose to eat the fruit. She then gave some to Adam, who also ate, and in that instant, everything changed. Their eyes were opened, and they became aware of good and evil, of themselves and of the world around them. The narrative emphasizes the transformative power of choice, the human capacity to act freely, even in defiance of divine instruction. As soon as they ate, Adam and Eve realized they were naked, and shame entered their hearts. They sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves, a symbolic act representing the emergence of moral consciousness, modesty, and the recognition of vulnerability. God, walking in the garden, called out to them, and they hid. This interaction demonstrates a fundamental theme: the separation of humanity from the immediate intimacy and trust with the divine. When confronted, Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the serpent, marking the beginning of moral responsibility and the human tendency to shift blame. God pronounced consequences for all three. The serpent would crawl on its belly and face enmity with humanity. Eve would endure pain in childbirth, and Adam would labor to cultivate food from the earth. Eve would endure pain in childbirth, and Adam would labor to cultivate food from the earth. Humanity was expelled from the Garden of Eden, a symbolic loss of innocence, and a step toward the complex world of moral responsibility, labor, and mortality. The story has been interpreted by scholars as an allegory for the transition from a state of primal unity with nature and the divine to the experience of human freedom, knowledge, and ethical responsibility. Adam and Eve's story is deeply symbolic, with multiple layers of meaning. The garden represents harmony and divine order, while the tree of knowledge symbolizes awareness, choice, and moral complexity. The serpent embodies temptation, cunning, and the challenge to trust. The act of eating the fruits signifies the human quest for autonomy, wisdom, and self-determination. Their expulsion is not merely punishment, but also a necessary stage in humanity's development, introducing work, suffering, and mortality into human experience. In theological discussions, this event is often referred to as the fall, describing the movement from innocence to the moral and existential complexity of human life. Despite the consequences, the story does not leave humanity in despair. It sets the stage for hope, redemption, and the possibility of reconciliation with God, themes that recur throughout biblical literature. The myth of Adam and Eve has parallels in many ancient cultures. Stories of the first humans, the gift or theft of knowledge, and the loss of paradise appear in Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Greek mythologies. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example, the story of Utnapishtim shares thematic elements with the garden narrative, emphasizing mortality and divine-human interaction. These cross-cultural similarities suggest that the story addresses universal human concerns: the origin of life, the nature of knowledge, and the tension between obedience and autonomy. Scholars argue that the narrative reflects early human attempts to explain why life involves suffering, moral choice, and the experience of shame and responsibility. Throughout history, artists and writers have engaged with Adam and Eve as a source of inspiration. From Michelangelo's frescoes in the Sistine Chapel to John Milton's Paradise Lost, the story has been visualized, dramatized, and reimagined in countless ways. These interpretations explore the tension between innocence and experience, temptation and choice, and human responsibility. The story resonates because it mirrors the struggles faced by every generation: the challenge of making ethical decisions, the allure of forbidden knowledge, and the consequences of actions. Adam and Eve are not merely historical figures, but archetypes representing universal aspects of the human condition: curiosity, temptation, love, fear, and moral growth. One of the most striking aspects of the story is the depiction of human relationships. Adam and Eve are portrayed not only as individuals, but as a partnership, highlighting the importance of companionship, cooperation, and shared responsibility. Their dynamic reflects themes of interdependence, conflict, and reconciliation that are relevant across cultures and eras. The act of eating the fruit together emphasizes shared choice and collective consequences, reminding us that human actions are interconnected. Scholars often discuss the gendered dimensions of the narrative, examining how Eve's role has been interpreted through the lens of patriarchal structures and how modern readings seek to reclaim agency and complexity for both characters. The expulsion from Eden introduces humanity to the realities of labor, survival, and mortality. Adam is tasked with cultivating the ground, symbolizing the necessity of effort and the inevitability of hardship. Eve's pain in childbirth reflects the realities of physical limitation and the transformative power of creation. These consequences illustrate the duality of human life: the presence of suffering alongside the potential for growth, love, and creativity. The story encourages reflection on the human condition, emphasizing the need to navigate a complex world with wisdom, courage, and moral discernment. Even in exile, humanity retains the image of God, suggesting that divine presence continues to guide, inspire, and redeem. In addition to theological and symbolic interpretations, the story of Adam and Eve offers lessons about personal growth and spiritual development. The narrative emphasizes the importance of awareness, responsibility, and the consequences of choices. The opening of the eyes symbolizes the acquisition of self-knowledge and moral insight, both empowering and challenging. The loss of paradise highlights the tension between freedom and discipline, illustrating that true maturity involves making informed decisions and accepting responsibility. The myth encourages contemplation of ethical principles, personal integrity, and the cultivation of virtues such as honesty, courage, and compassion. The story also serves as a foundation for understanding sin, redemption, and human fallibility within the Judeo-Christian tradition. By introducing the concept of original sin, the narrative sets the stage for later theological developments, including the need for salvation and the promise of redemption through divine intervention. Adam and Eve's disobedience illustrates the inherent tension between human desire and divine instruction, a theme explored extensively in biblical texts and religious thought. Despite their failure, the story conveys hope, emphasizing that humanity is capable of growth, learning, and reconciliation with God. This balance between consequence and hope has made the myth enduringly relevant and spiritually meaningful. Throughout centuries, the story has been reinterpreted in literature, art, psychology, and cultural discourse. Psychologists such as Carl Jung have explored Adam and Eve as archetypes, representing fundamental aspects of the human psyche, including innocence, desire, and the emergence of consciousness. Literary works often use the narrative to explore themes of temptation, moral complexity, and the search for meaning. The universality of these themes has ensured the story's persistence across cultures and generations. Its ability to convey profound truths through a simple narrative framework has made Adam and Eve a cornerstone of mythological and religious education. In popular culture, references to Adam and Eve continue to appear in films, television, and literature. The story's imagery, the forbidden fruit, the serpent, the garden resonates because it encapsulates essential human experiences: curiosity, temptation, love, conflict, and growth. Modern reinterpretations often highlight the agency of Eve, the importance of partnership, and the ethical dimensions of choice, offering new insights for contemporary audiences. The enduring fascination with Adam and Eve reflects the human desire to understand origins, morality, and the meaning of life, demonstrating that ancient myths continue to inform modern thought. As we reflect on the story, it is clear that Adam and Eve's journey is not only about disobedience or punishment. It is about the awakening of humanity, the gift and burden of moral knowledge, and the responsibility that comes with freedom. Their story encourages us to consider our own lives, the choices we make, and the consequences we face. It reminds us that curiosity and desire are part of being human, but that wisdom and moral discernment are essential guides for navigating life. The narrative challenges us to balance freedom with responsibility and to recognize the sacredness inherent in our own existence. The story of Adam and Eve also invites us to consider the relationship between humans and the natural world. The Garden of Eden represents an ideal harmony between humanity and nature, a vision of balance and stewardship. Their expulsion signifies the disruption of this harmony and the need for ethical engagement with the environment. Many scholars and religious thinkers draw lessons about sustainability, respect for creation, and the interconnectedness of life from this narrative. By understanding the symbolic meaning of Eden, viewers can gain insight into both historical beliefs and contemporary ecological concerns. Ultimately, the myth of Adam and Eve continues to captivate because it addresses the deepest questions of human existence. Where do we come from? Why is life filled with challenges? How do we navigate freedom, responsibility, and morality? How do we grow spiritually and ethically in a complex world? The narrative provides a framework for exploring these questions, offering wisdom, caution, and hope. It encourages viewers to reflect on their own choices, relationships, and responsibilities, emphasizing that life is a journey of learning, growth, and moral development. If you enjoyed this deep exploration of Adam and Eve, make sure to like and subscribe for more Mythology Explained videos. Leave a comment and let us know if there is any other story you'd like us to explore next. Every myth has a lesson, and we love bringing them to life with accurate history, engaging narration, and stunning visuals. Your support helps us continue creating content that educates, inspires, and captivates. Remember, these ancient stories are not just myths. They are mirrors of human experience, carrying timeless truths that still resonate today. Thank you for watching.